to get started here. So today we're going to be talking about off hours and some of the lessons learned in implementing those at a large financial organization. So I'm, like he said, I'm a sales engineer and I also do a lot of customer success here at Stacklet as well. So you see the mesmerizing Stacklet logo here off to the side there. That's glowing. That's what that thing is there. All right. So what are off hours? Off hours refers to kind of a concept. Developers can automate the process of turning off and on resources during specific periods where those resources aren't being used, aren't really doing anything. And this basically helps optimize costs, which is one of the big drivers of it. But it also can enhance security and promote some resource efficiency stuff. So basically specifying what days to turn a resource on and at what time and a time zone, and then what days to turn it off. Same thing, what time and what time zone there. So why use off hours? We're going to kind of cover some of the benefits here at a high level. Like I mentioned, cost optimization, that's a huge one. So turning off resources during off hours basically will reduce the cost of those resources up to 75% or more, depending on if you limit them to running just like 8 hours a day, just starting weekdays, that's like over 76% savings there. And so users are only billed for the time that those resources are actively running. There's a little asterisk there because your storage you're still billed for, even if your resource is off, but the compute time you're going to save a lot of money on. So resource efficiency, basically it's ensuring that your resources are utilized efficiently, preventing any unnecessary consumption of power and storage when they're not needed, so they can get shut off. And security enhancement. So obviously, if your resource is powered off for off hours, it is no longer a vulnerability at that point because it's not accessible. And so you are technically reducing the attack surface of your cloud environment by powering off those typically development resources when they're not being used. So it can not only get you the cost savings, but some security brownie points as well. If you are into saving the environment, it does have an environmental impact. Because you're reducing carbon footprint, even though these are in the cloud, there still is an actual data center, on the cloud provider side where they have servers that are running. So you'll be slightly reducing that carbon footprint by not running them continuously. The automation benefits of it, using Cloud Custodian, we have policies that allow you to automate this and basically use schedules to start and stop the resources, streamlining that process for you. So basically deploying, once you get a policy authored and deployed, the rest is all automated. Whether you're doing it at kind of a global, enforcing a particular time for off hours, or letting the developers choose what time they want their off hours to occur and what the time zone would be to apply to, that's kind of up to you. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, the last reason to use it is for compliance and governance. So adhering to off-hours practices can help your organization comply with some governance and policies and ensuring the responsible use of those cloud resources. So then basically we're going to cover a use case of off-hours of kind of what this could look like in a real-life environment. So just a made-up company name here, Acme Company, decides to apply some off hours in their development EC2 instances, so not production. Typically, these are typically done on development type of resources that don't need to be on 24/7. So they're going to start off with just EC2 instances. Off hours can be applied to multiple different instance types, and Cloud Custodian supports numerous of them. You can always check our schema and our cloudcustodian.io website and docs to see which resources support off hours, but there's quite a few, EC2 being a very common one though. So Acme Company just needs their resources from Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. So basically 9 hours a day there, including the lunch break. Evenings and weekends, they do not need them powered on. And so what we see down below is a monthly calendar with what that EC2 runtime would actually look like. The green slices there being the time that those EC2 instances would be running for the 9 hours a day. And then the kind of the reddish shade there is all the times when they would be off. So you can see majority of the time they're actually off here. So Acme Company authors a couple Cloud Custodian policies to do the off hours for them. So the first one over on the left here, this is the off hours stop policy running against the AWS EC2 resource. They have a mode of periodic with a scheduled rate of 30 minutes. So this policy is going to deploy itself as a Lambda function, and it's going to run every 30 minutes automatically. And it's going to look for EC2s that are in the state of running. And it's also going to ensure that those EC2s have an environment tag present with a value of dev, because they want to only power off development resources. They could also filter for the account being a dev account as well. And then they have the off-hour filter where they're going to say, apply off hours. They're specifying the time zone of the mountain time zone. And they're saying opt out true, meaning they're going to apply it everywhere. And then off hour 17. So they're basically saying shut off everything at 1700, which is 5 p.m., and take an action to stop. The reverse on the right side is the start policy. It's almost identical, except instead of looking for stop or for running instances, we're looking for stopped instances that have the environment tag of dev. And we're performing an on hour, turning on at 8 a.m. and then starting them. So Acme applies those off-hour policies across their development accounts. And let's say there's 300 M7G large on-demand development instances that it affects. So those instance runtime is reduced for each instance from 730 hours per month down to 195 hours per month by just doing 8 to 5 Monday to Friday. So that's a 74% reduction in runtime per instance. So the development instance cost for all 300 of those instances went from 17,870 a month down to 4,786 a month. So huge savings. So they're saving like over $13,000 per month, or per year, that's $157,000. And that's just against the EC2s. And if they expanded this to RDS and several other resources, auto scaling groups and things like that, they can multiply that several times even possibly. So down below is kind of the math on that from the 300 instances with their runtimes per month from the AWS cost calculator. And so off hours, there are some different options there that you can utilize. So they can be customized. You can do an opt-out true or an opt-out false mode. Was specifying in the Acme Corp one, they did an opt-out true, but opt-out false is kind of the default. And so that determines whether you are enforcing a specific like on and off hour and a time zone, or if you're letting the developers specify their own on and off hour times, days, and time zone via a tag, which we can see down at the bottom. There's a couple screenshots there. If Acme let their developers do it, they could basically, the tag might look like this, the screenshot on the left, where it's saying off equals Monday through Friday at 1700, aka 5 p.m. Turn it on Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and the time zone equals mountain. And so that's really good for basically companies that are global, and we'll kind of get into that in a second. Skip days allows you to specify like holidays or other days where you would not want to apply an off hour or on hour policy. So a common one there is specifying Christmas as a holiday, and so that your instances do not power on Christmas Day, because no one's going to be in the office using them most likely. Fallback schedule allows you to specify a schedule to use if one is not tagged on the resource when using the opt-out true. And then weekends and weekends only options allow you to specify if a resource should be powered on or off during a weekend or only on weekends versus weekdays, things like that. So you can get more details on each of these within the Cloud Custodian docs. And some of the lessons learned here are using Cloud Custodian and off hours in a large corporate environment is it's one of the easiest ways to save significant money in the cloud for development resources. So definitely take a look at it and see how many development resources you have, EC2s, auto scaling groups, RDSs, things like that, and see, what kind of benefit you might be able to get by applying off hours. And then make sure you document and communicate the off hours capabilities as well as the tagging syntax for the opt-out method to all the development groups in your organization. Encourage them to use it, demo how it can be used so they have a good understanding and it makes sense. So it's not just some magical thing happening behind the scenes, but encouraging them to use it and communicating so they're aware that it's there and available for use. And then using the opt-out false, like I mentioned, works better for organizations that have teams across time zones that are global, things like that, because that allows the developers to apply tags to the resources where they would like to apply off hours, as well as what days they would like the resource to be available and turned off, and what their time zone is, so that it operates according to their location. If you try and push out a global schedule to global teams, using mountain time zone, the people over in Europe are not going to appreciate that because it's going to shut their stuff off in the middle of their day, things like that. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. And then API consumption, just keep this in mind. It's not a common thing that would happen, but I did see this at my last organization where there was one account in one region that had over 500 EC2 instances that would use off hours, and they would all power off and on at the same time. All 500 instances also had user data scripts that, as soon as those instances powered up, started querying a bunch of things in their account. So they had 500 instances all running the same API calls at the same time, and we would see hundreds of thousands of throttles in their account because of that. So if you're going to use user data and have those things start hammering APIs when they boot up, just be mindful of that. So you don't kill your API limits. And then run reports on which teams and accounts are utilizing the off hours, after, a couple months of using them, see how much money they've saved and publicly praise those teams, and post that, to kind of encourage more teams to use it. And, that makes them feel good about saving money, and getting some public praise is always appreciated by a lot of teams. So thank you for your time, for joining us. Hopefully you got some good information in here. You can learn more about off hours in the Cloud Custodian docs at this URL, and I can drop this into chat here. But do we have any questions? I'm glad to answer anything. And if we have, I guess